I keep telling myself I'm a good person, but lately that sentence feels like a shirt that doesn't fit anymore. Too tight in the shoulders, pinching at the collar. If this were a Reddit post, I'd open with, I think I'm falling in love with someone I shouldn't even be noticing. And maybe that's the closest to the truth. Or maybe the truth is uglier, simpler. I'm lonely in ways I didn't realize until someone else looked at me like I mattered. Her name is Mara, and no, she's not my girlfriend. That would be Lena, who I've been with for 5 years. 5 steady, mostly good years. The kind of relationship that looks stable from the outside. Shared bills, shared routines, jokes worn smooth from overuse. We've talked about marriage in the someday way. We've picked out imaginary baby names while drunk on the couch. I love her, or at least I believe I do. Belief used to feel like enough. But then came Mara. I met her 2 months ago at the nonprofit where I volunteer twice a week. She's the new coordinator, sharp-witted, quick to smile, with that kind of quietly intense presence that makes you straighten up without knowing why. The first time she introduced herself, she touched my arm lightly, just a quick brush. It shouldn't have meant anything. It shouldn't have stayed with me for days. Lena and I had just moved in together. The apartment was still a maze of half-unpacked boxes. She'd take pictures of our messy kitchen and caption them, "Home in progress," sending them to her sister. I'd laugh, we'd kiss, we'd fall asleep with the window cracked open so the late summer air could drift in. So why did it feel like something invisible had shifted? I noticed it the first time I caught myself looking forward to volunteering. Not in the I'm doing something good way, but in the maybe she'll be there way. I hated that difference. I felt it in my stomach, and that guilty tightness that wouldn't go away. One Tuesday evening, I came home to find Lena sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by tangled string lights, determined to decorate early for fall. She held them up, triumphantly, like she'd wrangled a wild animal. Help me? These things are possessed. I sat with her, untangling loops of wire, pretending not to feel the ache of some internal fault line widening. She leaned her head on my shoulder. Her hair smelled like rosemary shampoo and the candle she'd lit in the living room. It should have grounded me. It used to. I feel like we haven't spent a real evening together in weeks, she murmured. We will, I promised, automatically, even though I wasn't sure why it felt like a lie. Things have just been busy. She accepted that with a small, tired smile. She always accepts things, always tries to understand. And that, God, that makes the guilt so much worse. The pull toward Mara wasn't dramatic. It was small, incremental, a shift in gravitational center. A glance held a second too long. A conversation that felt more intimate than it should have, even though it was technically harmless. One night at the nonprofit, after most volunteers had left, I was closing up a supply cabinet when she stopped beside me. "You okay?" she asked. It caught me off guard. Yeah, why? "You felt different lately." Her voice was gentle, not probing, distracted. I swallowed. Just life stuff. She nodded, like she understood more than I'd said. If you ever want to talk, sometimes it helps. That was the moment I knew I was in trouble, because some part of me did want to talk to her. Not about anything, just talk. Hear her respond. Feel seen in a way I couldn't explain. But I didn't. I locked the cabinet, told her goodnight, and drove home with my chest tight. Back at the apartment, Lena had fallen asleep on the couch, curled around a blanket, the TV still playing some documentary she loved. I stood there for a long moment, just watching her breathe. She looked peaceful, vulnerable, trusting, and I felt like a fraud. I keep thinking I can pull myself back, redirect, fix whatever's broken inside me, that this is just a rough patch, a weird phase, a flicker of attraction that will burn out if I starve it of oxygen. But the truth, the one I'm finally admitting, even if only here, is that something is beginning, something I shouldn't let happen, something I'm afraid I won't be able to stop. And I don't know yet if it's going to destroy everything. I wish I could say I avoided her after that night, that I took the discomfort as a warning and stepped back. But wanting distance isn't the same as keeping it. Some days it felt like my mind was split in two. The part that held Lena, our home, our years together, and the part that leaned toward Mara without meaning to, like a plant bending toward a sliver of light. It got bad enough that I started editing myself around Lena. Tiny edits, barely noticeable unless you know what to look for. When she asked how volunteering went, I answered too quickly. When she suggested coming with me sometime, she used to come now and then, I panicked a little, inside, and mumbled something about shifts being weird lately. She didn't question it. She never does. And that's its own kind of knife. The first real crack happened on a Thursday. I'd been running late and skipped dinner, so by the time I got to the nonprofit, my stomach was growling. The place was already busy, kids in the tutoring room, volunteers stocking shelves, the hum of conversation mixing with the rattle of bins being shifted around. I signed in, shoved my backpack into a cubby, and headed toward the back where we were sorting donated winter clothes. Mara was there, sleeves rolled up, hair pulled back in a loose knot that somehow made her look even more put together. She glanced up when she heard me. "You look exhausted," she said, not unkindly. "Thanks," I said, laughing despite myself. Did my dark eye circles finally achieve visibility in low light? "Pretty much." She tossed me a protein bar from the counter. "Eat. You get weird when you're hungry." I caught it, trying not to feel the strange warmth the comment stirred in me. "Weird how?" She shrugged, sorting jackets. "Quieter, in your head, like you're trying not to be noticed." That hit a little too close. I opened the wrapper and ate slowly, watching her work. She was efficient, but gentle. That combination always gets me more than it should. We worked side by side for maybe 20 minutes, exchanging small talk, nothing outrageous, nothing inappropriate. But the space between us felt charged, like a tightrope pulled between two rooftops. At one point, she brushed past me to reach a box, and her hand accidentally grazed my lower back. Just a split second, barely more than the brush of fabric. But it felt like being struck by a match. I drew in a breath, sharp enough that she paused. "Sorry," she murmured, stepping back. "It's fine," I said, too quickly, too firmly. She looked at me for a moment, something testing in her eyes. I looked away. The rest of the shift was a blur. That night, when I got home, Lena was sitting on the bed folding laundry. She looked up at me with that soft, familiar smile, and something in me twisted painfully. "Hey," she said, "you're home late." "Yeah, things ran long." She nodded, smoothing a shirt. "Are you okay?" It was such a simple question, but for the first time, I hesitated. "I'm fine," I said eventually, forcing a smile. "Just tired." She didn't push, but she watched me with a kind of quiet concern that made me want to crawl out of my skin. I showered, hoping hot water could wash away the guilt crawling under my ribs, but it only made it worse. When I got into bed, she curled into me instinctively, head on my chest, breathing slow. I held her automatically, muscle memory, comfort, and routine. But my mind was elsewhere, and I hated myself for it. The forbidden connection with Mara didn't escalate in any dramatic way. No confessions, no lingering touches, nothing you could point to as a line crossed. It was subtler than that. Little moments that shouldn't have mattered, but did. She'd ask how my week was and actually listen. She'd laugh at something I said, and it would land differently, lower, warmer. She'd share stories from her life, things she wasn't telling other volunteers. I noticed that. I shouldn't have. One evening, while we were reorganizing a chaotic craft supply closet, she admitted she used to be engaged. "Didn't work out," she said, her voice oddly steady. "We wanted different futures." I asked what she meant, even though I shouldn't have. He wanted certainty. I wanted something else, something real, but not trapped. The phrase stuck with me. Something real, but not trapped. That night, lying next to Lena, I kept hearing Mara's voice, and I felt a split forming inside me, so deep it made my stomach ache. The moral struggle wasn't a dramatic battle. It was quieter, more insidious, a constant negotiation with myself. You shouldn't think about her. But I am. You love Lena. I know. Then stop this before it gets worse. I'm trying. But wanting to stop and actually stopping were two very different things. And every shift at the nonprofit made that fact harder to ignore. The moment I realized the connection had grown beyond harmless happened on a rainy Tuesday. Nothing special, nothing dramatic. We were restocking shelves. She asked how I'd been sleeping. Not if, how. That distinction opened something in me I hadn't meant to open. I told her the truth, that my mind has been loud lately, that I felt stretched thin. She didn't give advice. She didn't fill the silence. She just stood there with me in it. And in that tiny sliver of quiet, I felt something shift for real. Something that made everything ahead feel suddenly, terrifyingly possible. I've replayed that rainy Tuesday more times than I want to admit. Not because anything explicitly wrong happened, but because something inside me crossed a line I'd been pretending didn't exist. Emotional intimacy isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It slips in quietly, drawing its own boundaries while you tell yourself you're still on the right side of them. After that day, something changed between me and Mara. Not visibly, not publicly, but in the private way people start orbiting closer without noticing they're doing it. Our conversations stretched longer. Our silences became comfortable. She'd ask questions that went just a little deeper than they should have, and I answered them with an honesty I hadn't realized I was starving for. And then, the thing that really scared me, I started asking about her life too. Not out of politeness, out of genuine wanting. One night, we were both staying late to finish inventory. The building was nearly empty, the hum of the fluorescent lights louder than the street outside. I remember the way the rain streaked the windows, making everything look blurred around the edges. We were sitting on the floor, surrounded by boxes, taking a break. She was peeling the label off a water bottle, little curls of plastic gathering by her knee. I asked her about her family, something I hadn't done before. She hesitated for the first time since we met. "They're complicated," she said eventually. "We don't talk much." How come? I shouldn't have asked, but I did. She picked at the label again, voice softening. "They think I make bad decisions. Or maybe they just think I don't think things through." A humorless smile. "But honestly, I think they're scared of anything that doesn't look like their version of normal." "That sounds lonely," I said. She looked up, and the expression on her face made my breath catch. Not dramatic, not tearful, just raw. "It is," she admitted, more than I let on. Something in my chest tightened. I wanted, God, I don't know what I wanted. To fix it? To take away that loneliness? To make her feel seen in the way she unconsciously made me feel seen. It was the first time I felt a real swell of protectiveness toward her, and that terrified me. I shifted the boxes around just to have something to do with my hands. "For what it's worth," I said, "you don't make bad decisions. At least, not from what I've seen." She tilted her head slightly, studying me. "You don't really know me." "I'm getting to," I said before I could stop myself. She exhaled, a slow, warm sound. "Yeah, I guess you are." Silence again, but this one wasn't neutral. It had weight. She nudged my knee with hers, small, accidental seeming, but not at all accidental. My whole body reacted. A stupid primal shiver ran up my spine. I should have pulled back. I should have changed the subject. I should have said literally anything that created distance. Instead, I let my knees stay against hers. Just that, the softest touch, but it felt like a confession. When I got home that night, Lena was on a video call with her mom. She waved me over, cheerful, oblivious. I smiled, kissed her forehead, pretended everything was fine. After she hung up, she asked how my shift went. "Good," I said. One word, a lie through omission. She cuddled into me on the couch as we watched whatever show she was into that week, her head on my shoulder, fingers laced with mine. It should have grounded me. It always used to. But the whole time, I kept thinking about that moment on the floor with Mara. about the way her voice softened, about the tiny nudge of her knee. And the worst part? I didn't feel guilty yet. Not fully. Not in the way I should have. It wasn't betrayal, not technically, but something had begun. Something dangerous. Over the next couple weeks, our conversations deepened in ways I didn't see coming. She told me she'd always wanted to live near the coast but never had the money or the freedom to go. I told her about the pressure I felt to be dependable, steady, the safe one, how sometimes it made me feel small or boring. "You're not boring," she said, so softly it felt like a secret. No one had ever said anything like that to me. Not in a way that felt true. One evening, she shared that she'd been struggling with insomnia since her breakup. "I keep thinking I'm hard to love," she whispered, "like I'm too much or not enough at the same time." Hearing her say that twisted something deep inside me. I wanted to hold her. I wanted to tell her she was wrong. Instead, I sat beside her, silent, feeling like the ground between us was shrinking. "You're easy to talk to," she added, eyes flicking to mine. Too easy, maybe. My heart thudded painfully. Is that a bad thing? She smiled, but it wasn't a safe smile. "Ask me again sometime." That night, driving home, the guilt finally hit, but not enough to stop the slow slide toward her. Not enough to undo the fact that I had started guarding parts of my life from Lena while giving them freely to someone else. Not enough to undo the truth I was finally beginning to see. I wasn't just drawn to Mara. I was becoming emotionally entangled with her. And emotional intimacy, I was realizing, is often the beginning of the end. I can tell you the exact moment everything tipped, when the balance I'd been pretending to maintain snapped under its own weight. It didn't happen in some cinematic way. No dramatic music, no shouting, no confessions echoing off walls. Just a small, human moment that hit like a fault line finally giving way. It started with a message, not from Mara, from Lena. It was a Saturday morning. I was at the nonprofit for an extra shift, something I justified as helping out, even though I knew part of me just wanted to see Mara again. I was shelving boxes when my phone buzzed. Lena had sent a picture of a mug she'd found at a thrift store, bright yellow, chipped at the rim, with a cartoon sun on it. "Look, it matches the one you broke last year. Want me to grab it?" I smiled at the text, the kind of warm, automatic smile you feel in your chest. I typed, "Yes, grab it, love you." Before I could hit send, I heard a soft voice behind me. "Cute mug?" I startled slightly. Mara stood in the doorway, leaning her shoulder against the frame. She was dressed casually, faded jeans and a sweater with sleeves pushed to her elbows. She looked comfortable, familiar. I turned the screen toward me, thumb hovering. "Yeah, Lena found it at..." I glanced up and froze. Mara wasn't looking at the mug. She was looking at my face. Something unreadable flickered across her expression before she masked it. "She finds little things like that for you a lot," she said, not accusing, not bitter, just observing. "Yeah," I said slowly, "she does." Mara nodded and walked into the room, her eyes drifting over the shelves. "She seems really thoughtful." "She is." My voice sounded too defensive in my own ears. Mara knelt beside a box and began sorting through scarves, her movements brisk and precise. "Must be nice," she added, lightly. "Hey," I said, setting my phone aside, "what's going on?" Her laugh was small, almost embarrassed. "Nothing, ignore me, I'm just tired." But her shoulders were tense and her jaw was tight and she wouldn't look at me. I moved closer, sitting on the edge of the table. "Talk to me." She didn't, not at first. She just kept folding scarves, hands trembling slightly, until finally she whispered, "I shouldn't be jealous." That word hit me like ice. Jealous. Mara. "I know," she said, shaking her head. I know. It's stupid. You have a girlfriend, and she clearly adores you, and I'm not trying to..." "Mara." I said her name gently because her voice was breaking. She finally looked up. And that was it. The moment everything shifted. Because I saw it in her eyes. Not just attraction, not just fondness, something deeper, something she was terrified of, something I'd been pretending she didn't feel and pretending I didn't feel back. "I'm sorry," she said, wiping her cheek quickly with the heel of her hand. "This is inappropriate. I shouldn't have said anything." "It's not inappropriate to be honest," I murmured. She huffed a tired laugh. "It is when the person you're honest with goes home to someone else." The room suddenly felt too small, too quiet. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, like the world was holding its breath. "You didn't do anything wrong," I said. "Yes, I did," she whispered. "I let myself care about someone who's taken. That's on me." Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. My chest tightened painfully. I reached out, hesitated, then let my hand hover near hers, not touching, just near enough that she could feel the warmth. "Mara," I said quietly, "I care about you too." Her breath caught. "Don't say that." "It's the truth. That's exactly why you shouldn't say it." She stood abruptly, pacing to the opposite wall, running both hands through her hair. She looked like she was breaking in real time, and watching it made something inside me collapse. "This can't go anywhere," she whispered. "I can't be that person, and you shouldn't become that person." I knew she was right. I also knew I didn't want her to be. "We can still be friends," I offered weakly. She laughed, harsh and hollow. "Friends? You don't look at your friends the way you look at me." The air between us vibrated with truth I didn't want to acknowledge. "I don't want to lose you," I said. It came out raw. "You don't have me," she said softly. "That's the problem." Something inside me shattered quietly. We stood there in the dim room, both of us breathing too fast, both of us terrified. It felt like a confession and a goodbye tangled together. And then, as if the universe wanted to twist the knife, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Lena. "Heading home now. Want to cook dinner together tonight?" A heart emoji. My stomach dropped. Mara watched me pick up the phone. She didn't say anything, but the devastation in her eyes was unmistakable. "I should go," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "Mara, please." But she was already moving toward the doorway. She paused in the doorway and said the words that would haunt me for weeks. "Be careful, okay? You're standing on a line you think you can balance on, but no one ever balances. They fall." And then she left. I stood there in the silence she left behind, feeling like my life had just pivoted sharply, though I wasn't sure yet in which direction. But I knew one thing with brutal clarity. We weren't going back to harmless after this. The week after Mara walked out of that storage room felt like living in slow motion. Everything normal looked slightly wrong, as if someone had tilted the world by a few degrees. I checked my phone constantly, even though I knew she wouldn't text me. I rehearsed conversations we'd never have. I kept telling myself to stop thinking about her, but my mind didn't listen. At home, Lena noticed the shift before I even opened my mouth. "You're quiet lately," she said one night while chopping vegetables. "Is something wrong at work?" "Volunteering," I corrected automatically, then winced at how sharp I sounded. "Sorry, I'm just tired." She nodded, but her eyes lingered on me for a beat too long. "You can talk to me, you know." I almost did. Almost sat her down and poured out every guilty thought, every moment of weakness, every tiny betrayal already taking shape inside me. But I couldn't. Not because I didn't trust her, because I didn't want to face what the truth would make real. So instead, I kissed the back of her neck and said, "I'm fine." She believed me, or she pretended to. I don't know which one would hurt less. By the time my next volunteer shift came around, I'd convinced myself that Mara would be distant, cold maybe, polite but guarded, something to force me back into line. Instead, she wasn't there at all. Her name wasn't on the schedule. No messages, no explanation, just absence. A hollow space where she should have been. I told myself I was relieved. Then I told myself I shouldn't be relieved. Then I admitted I wasn't relieved at all. I was disappointed, worried, pulled toward her even more. For a few days, she stayed gone. Then came Tuesday. I walked into the nonprofit half dreading, half hoping, and there she was at the far table, arranging donation bins. She didn't look up right away, but when she did, her expression flickered, surprise, then something softer, then something she quickly hid. "Hey," she said. Just one word, but it felt like a stone dropped into still water, sending rings of tension outward. "Hey," I echoed. We worked near each other, but not next to each other, like two magnets turned the wrong way. She avoided standing too close. She kept her answers short. She didn't joke with me the way she used to. I felt the distance like a bruise I kept pressing. Finally, during a lull, I approached her. "Can we talk?" She stiffened. "We don't need to." I feel like I should apologize." "For what?" she said, not looking at me. "You didn't do anything wrong." "Yes, I did," I said quietly. "I let things get blurry." She let out a sad laugh. "You didn't let anything happen. Things just happened." "Mara." She closed her eyes for a moment, exhaling through her nose. When she looked at me again, her expression was tired but honest. "I'm trying really hard to build walls here," she said, "so please don't knock them down." "I'm not trying to," I said, though we both knew that wasn't fully true. She stepped back, leaning against a cabinet. "Then what are you trying to do?" I opened my mouth, no idea what answer would come out, but before I could speak, she added, "Because I'm not strong enough to be the only one resisting this." The room felt too warm suddenly, too close. My heart hammered in my chest. "Mara." "Don't," she whispered. But she didn't walk away. And that was the problem. The rest of the shift was agony. Every time she reached for a box, every time her sleeve brushed her wrist, every time she laughed with someone else, I felt a pull I didn't want to name. When we closed up for the night, I lingered by the exit, tying my shoe just to delay leaving. Mara approached, locking up the front desk. "You should go," she said softly. "You're avoiding me." She stared at the floor. "I'm trying to survive this without losing my job or my dignity." I stepped closer. Too close, I knew it. But something in me had already crossed a psychological threshold, the point of no return. The room was dim, lit only by the exit sign and the glow from the parking lot through the glass. Her eyes flicked up to mine, and the air changed. It wasn't a dramatic moment, it was a quiet one, but quiet things can be dangerous. "Mara," I said, voice barely above a whisper, "tell me what you want me to do." She swallowed hard. "I want you to choose your life." "And what about—" "No," she cut in, voice shaking. "Don't say it. Don't make this harder." I should have nodded, stepped back, left. Instead, I said the words that pushed us both over that invisible edge. "I can't pretend I don't care about you." She inhaled sharply, like the words hurt, or healed, or both. "Please," she whispered, voice breaking, "don't do this to me." "I'm not doing it to you," I said. "It's happening to both of us." She looked like she wanted to scream, or cry, or kiss me, and the terrifying part was that I didn't know which one she would do first, or which one I wanted more. She brushed past me to leave, but I caught her wrist gently. She froze, not pulling away, not moving forward. That single second held enough electricity to light a city. Her voice trembled. "Let me go." I did, immediately. But the look she gave me when she turned around, raw, conflicted, devastated,
told me everything. She didn't actually want me to, and I didn't her to either. That night, lying in bed beside Lena as she slept peacefully, I stared at the ceiling until sunrise, because I finally understood the truth. The next time I saw Mara, something was going to happen, something we wouldn't be able to undo. We had crossed the point of no return, and the fall had already begun.
I've tried, in the days since, to pinpoint what exactly broke inside me that night, what snapped so cleanly that resistance stopped being a choice and started becoming a lie I couldn't sustain. But the truth is more mundane, and somehow worse. Nothing snapped. Nothing dramatic happened. Just a slow erosion until there was nothing left to hold the line in place. The betrayal didn't begin with a kiss. It began with a decision to stay. It was a Thursday evening, a week after that night I let her wrist slip from my fingers. I'd told Lena I'd be home late. Inventory was behind, I said. Technically true, but not the real reason I stayed. I was restless, wired, caught somewhere between guilt and craving. I told myself I wanted closure, distance, a boundary. But when I walked into the nonprofit, Mara was sitting alone on the floor of the supply room, surrounded by open boxes, her hair falling loose around her face. She looked tired, vulnerable, beautiful in a way that made my heart ache. She looked up, startled. "I thought you weren't coming today." "I wasn't sure I would," I said. Her eyes softened, or maybe she just exhaled, hard to tell. "Do you want help with these?" she asked, gesturing to the mess around her. "Yeah," I said, "sure." It was a lie. I didn't care about the boxes. I just wanted to be near her. We worked in silence for a while, the kind that isn't awkward but charged. You can feel every movement, every breath, like the room has narrowed to just the two of us. The air felt thick, almost humid, like the moment before a storm finally breaks. At one point, she reached for a stack of books at the same time I did, and our hands brushed. Just skin against skin, no more than a second. But her breath hitched, and mine stilled completely. I pulled back fast, swallowing hard. "Sorry," I murmured. Her voice was barely audible when she whispered, "Stop apologizing." I froze. She was staring at her hands, fingers trembling slightly. Her next words came out like a confession dragged from her ribs. "Every time you say sorry, it feels like you're pretending there's nothing between us." I stepped back like she'd shoved me. "I'm not pretending." She looked up then, really looked, and the rawness in her eyes felt like a hand around my throat. "Then what are we doing?" she asked, voice cracking. "I don't know. I don't know how to want two things at once." "You don't," she whispered. "You just pick the one you can't walk away from." Silence. Heavy. Punishing. I took a slow breath, trying to steady myself. "I don't want to hurt anyone." "It's too late for that," she said gently, not accusing, just true. She stood, brushing dust from her jeans. She moved toward the door as if leaving was the only thing she could do to survive the moment. But then she paused, hand on the doorframe, shoulders tight, fighting herself. "Do you want me to go?" she asked without turning around. God, that question. It felt like she had reached into my chest and touched the one place I'd been desperately avoiding. "No," I said, barely able to speak. "I don't want you to go." She turned then, slowly, like she needed a second to register the words. The look on her face was half hope, half fear, and all of it undoing me. She crossed the room in small, tentative steps until she was standing in front of me, closer than we'd ever been. Close enough that I could smell the faint citrus of her shampoo, see the way her pupils widen, feel the heat rolling off her. "Tell me to stop," she whispered. "If you don't want this,
tell me to stop. I didn't say anything. I should have, but I couldn't, because for the first time in months, wanting something felt effortless. She reached up, slowly, slowly, giving me every second to pull back. Her fingers brushed my jaw, barely there, like a question. My breath caught. She leaned in, not all the way, just close enough that her forehead touched mine. Her voice trembled through the inch between our mouths. I don't want to be the thing that ruins your life. You're not, I whispered. You're the thing I can't ignore anymore. She closed her eyes. A soft, broken sound escaped her. And that was the moment it happened, the moment the world narrowed to a single point. She kissed me. Not desperate, not messy, just honest. A slow, trembling kiss full of everything we'd been trying so hard not to feel. I kissed her back. God help me, I kissed her back. The guilt didn't strike me in that moment. It came later, much later. Right then, all I felt was relief, like exhaling after holding my breath for months. Her hand slid to my shoulders. Mine found her waist. The room felt too bright, too small, too real. We broke apart only long enough to breathe, foreheads still touching. "This is wrong," she whispered. "I know. We can't keep going. I know. But I know." We kissed again and again. The second time was hungrier, the kind that made my knees weaken, the kind that left no room for pretending we hadn't crossed the line we'd been dancing around for weeks. The forbidden thing didn't happen all at once. It happened in a series of moments. Clothes not removed, but pushed aside, hands shaking, breath catching, hearts racing. A desperate, clumsy surrender to something we'd both tried so hard to deny. When it was over, when the storm finally passed, we sat on the floor, backs against a metal cabinet, legs tangled, breath uneven. Reality seeped back in like cold air. She spoke first. "What did we just do?" I didn't have an answer. She pressed her palms to her eyes. "Lena." Hearing Lena's name out loud was like being punched. "I know," I whispered. "I know." Mara looked at me with devastation in her eyes. I didn't want this to happen like this. Neither did I, and yet it did. We sat there in silence, surrounded by boxes and guilt and the wreckage of choices we couldn't take back. I had crossed the line, and now everything was going to break.
I didn't sleep that night. Not because of guilt, though it crawled over me like a second skin, but because every time I closed my eyes, I could still feel her breath, her hands, the quiet desperation in the way she whispered my name, like she was confessing a prayer and a sin at once. By the time dawn bled weakly through the curtains at home, I was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at my untouched coffee as if it might tell me what to do. My phone was face down. I didn't want to see Mara's name, but part of me hoped, feared, craved that she'd text. I didn't have to wait long. At 7:42 a.m., it vibrated. "Mara, are you okay? I can't stop thinking about last night. I'm so sorry." Sorry. God, the word hit like a kick to the ribs. I didn't respond, not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't trust myself to say anything that wouldn't make things worse. Lena stepped into the kitchen 10 minutes later, sleepy-eyed, hair messy from the pillow. She leaned down to kiss my cheek, and I tensed before I could stop myself. She didn't seem to notice. "You're up early," she said, pouring herself coffee. I forced a smile. Couldn't sleep. "Everything okay?" "No, nothing is okay. I cheated on you last night. I betrayed you. I don't know who I am anymore." "Yeah," I lied. "Just a lot on my mind." She sat across from me,
her palm reaching out to rest on mine. I almost pulled away. Almost. But I didn't want to hurt her, not in a way she could see. "You know," she said, squeezing gently, "you've been really distant lately. I'm glad you came home early last night." Early. If only she knew. I swallowed hard. Yeah, me too. The guilt was gnawing now, a slow acid burn behind my ribs. Lena continued, unaware. "Maybe this weekend we could take a break from everything, just the two of us. Drive somewhere, hike, disconnect." A weekend away? Just the two of us? Pure intentions wrapped around a knife I had planted myself. "Yeah," I said, "let's do that." It was cruel. I knew it was, but I couldn't bring myself to tell the truth. Not yet. Not when I didn't know what the truth even was. The volunteer center. I went to the nonprofit after lunch. I wasn't supposed to be there, but avoiding it felt suspicious, and I told myself I needed to talk to her, clarify, create boundaries. But when I walked inside, Mara wasn't there. Her desk was empty. Her jacket wasn't on the chair. Even her coffee mug, always filled with mint tea, was gone. My chest tightened. I found Carla, the program coordinator, sorting paperwork in the hall. "Have you seen Mara?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Carla looked up. "Oh, she called in sick today." My heartbeat skipped, hard. Sick? "Yeah, sounded rough. Said she needed a day." I nodded slowly, but inside, panic and shame were twisting into something sharp and urgent. Of course she stayed home. Of course she needed space. After what we'd done, I don't know if I should feel relieved or terrified. I stepped outside and texted her before I could overthink it. "Mo, can we talk?" A long pause. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, "Mara, I don't think we should. Not yet." My stomach dropped. "Me, please, just to clear things up." Another long pause. "Mara, there's nothing to clear up. We crossed a line. I shouldn't have let it happen. You have someone who loves you. I don't want to be the reason you lose her." Lose her. The words sliced cleanly, because they weren't an accusation. They were a fear. A fear she carried while I kept drifting between 2 lives like a coward. I typed and erased 4 different replies. Everything felt wrong. Finally, I sent, "Me. I don't know what I'm doing. I can't pretend it didn't mean anything." Her response took nearly 5 minutes. "Mara, it meant too much. That's the problem." The night that followed, I went home early, not to be noble, just because I couldn't stand the empty rooms at the nonprofit without her in them. Lena greeted me with a smile and a kiss. I felt like I was being dissected alive. She made dinner. We watched a show together. She curled against me on the couch the way she always did. And all I could think about was how my body betrayed both of them, craving one while lying to the other with every affectionate gesture. At one point, she rested her head on my chest. "Your heart is racing," she murmured. "I'm just tired," I said quickly. Half truth. Better than a full lie. "You should try to sleep early," she said. "You've been working too hard." I nodded. But when she finally drifted off beside me, breathing steady, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of everything unraveling. I didn't want to lose Mara, but I didn't want to hurt Lena, and every path forward felt like stepping into fire. The message that changed everything. At 12:13 a.m., my phone buzzed softly on the nightstand. I turned to see the screen. "Mara, I can't sleep. I keep replaying everything. I'm scared of what this means." My pulse spiked. I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Lena, and stepped into the hallway where the light from the bathroom cast a soft glow. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard. I could end it. Right now. I could say we should cut ties, restore boundaries, pretend it was a mistake. It would be the right thing, the responsible thing, the thing a good partner would do. Instead, I wrote, Me. I'm not ready to let you go. The message sent. Delivered. Read. She didn't reply immediately. When her answer finally came, it was only 3 words. Mara, then we're in trouble. And God help me. I smiled.
I woke the next morning feeling like I'd been dropped into a life that didn't quite fit anymore. Every object in the apartment felt sharp-edged. Lena's slippers by the bed, the mug she left on the counter, the photo of us from last year's road trip. All these little monuments to a life I was supposed to be grateful for. A life I'd punctured with one night I still couldn't stop thinking about. It wasn't the physical part that haunted me the most. It was the way I'd let myself crumble into Mara's arms, like I'd been waiting for her to catch me. It was the way she had caught me. And now, both of us were dangling over the consequences. I checked my phone before I even got out of bed. No new messages from her. I stared at her last text. Then we're in trouble. The words seemed to echo. Lena was humming in the kitchen, making breakfast, like it was any normal day. Normal was gone. I joined her, sat at the table, watched her move around the stove in an oversized t-shirt she'd stolen from me months ago. She handed me a plate of scrambled eggs, the same recipe she'd perfected over the years, the one she made when she wanted us to have a slow morning. I forced myself to eat. She smiled. I felt sick. "Hey," she said, sliding into the chair beside me. "Can we talk about this weekend? I found a cabin that isn't too expensive. It's right by the water. I think we could use the time away." I nodded slowly, staring at the fork in my hand. "Yeah, that sounds good." "Good," she said softly. "I miss you." My throat tightened. "I'm right here." "But you're not," she whispered. "Not really." I couldn't look at her. She deserved the truth. But the truth would break her, and I wasn't ready to watch that happen. Instead, I reached for her hand. She squeezed it immediately, grateful, hopeful, the kind of hope that made my stomach twist, because I knew I was feeding her crumbs instead of honesty. At the nonprofit, Mara was back the next day. I wasn't ready. I don't know what I expected. Tears, awkwardness, avoidance. But when she walked in, she looked composed. Maybe too composed. Like she'd been rehearsing a role. She gave me a tight smile. Hi, I said, trying to sound normal. We worked in the same room that morning. The air felt heavy enough to chew. She kept her distance, but her eyes kept flickering toward me in these small, quick glances. Checking, searching. I didn't know if she wanted reassurance or detachment. Around noon, she finally approached my desk. "Can we talk?" she asked quietly. I nodded, and we stepped outside. The late morning sunlight was brutal, exposing. She crossed her arms, eyes fixed on the parking lot. "I'm trying to figure out what you want." The question hit like a punch, because I'd been avoiding it, deliberately. "I don't know," I admitted. She exhaled shakily. "I can't be your mistake. You're not. You weren't." Her eyes softened for half a second before hardening again. "But I might become one, and I don't think I can survive being that for someone." I wanted to touch her. I didn't. I stood there with my hands shoved in my pockets because I couldn't trust them. She looked at me then, really looked, and something in her expression cracked. "I keep replaying last night," she said, "not because I regret it, but because I don't know how to exist around you now without wanting." She stopped herself. "Wanting what?" I asked, voice low. "You," she whispered. The words sat between us, pulsing like a heartbeat. "And I know I shouldn't," she added. "I know you're not mine to want." The ache that spread through me was immediate and overwhelming. "Mara." "No," she interrupted gently. "This isn't fair to anyone. Not to Lena, not to me, not to you." She looked like she was about to walk away, and something inside me lurched. "I don't want to lose you," I said. She froze. Then she turned back, eyes shining with something complicated and dangerous. "Then figure out what you're willing to risk." The slow unraveling. After that conversation, nothing improved. If anything, the uncertainty made everything worse.
Mara and I kept our distance physically, but emotionally, we were in free fall. She'd send a message about a new outreach idea, and I'd overanalyze the tone. I'd catch her smile at a client, and my chest would tighten with jealousy I had no right to feel. She'd brush past me in the hallway, and my body felt every inch of the air between us. It was like living with withdrawal symptoms for a drug I tasted only once. And meanwhile, Lena was trying so hard, fixing dinners, planning our weekend trip, reaching for me in bed. Every affectionate gesture felt like it pressed a finger deeper into the bruise of my guilt. One night, she rested her head on my chest and whispered, "I love you. You know that, right?" I felt the words like stones sinking inside me. "I love you too," I said automatically. But even as the words left my mouth, guilt flared so strong I nearly flinched. The turning point, not the big one, but an important fracture, happened on a Thursday afternoon. I passed Mara's office and heard her laughing with someone on the phone. A soft, warm laugh, a real one she used to make around me. I froze in the hallway. It shouldn't have mattered. She was allowed to have a life outside of the mess we'd created, allowed to smile, allowed to find comfort elsewhere. But it hit me in a place I didn't want to examine, because the laugh sounded like she was moving on, healing, letting go. And the moment I thought she might not need me, really not need me, I felt something dark and selfish rise inside me. I stepped back, leaned against the wall, closed my eyes. I didn't want to lose her. I didn't want Lena to suffer. I didn't want to keep lying. I didn't want to confess. Everything was pulling me in opposite directions, and I didn't know how much longer I could stay intact. Something was going to snap.
The moment the threads finally gave way. It started quietly, like these things always do, with a single choice that should have been small, simple, forgettable. But when you're already standing on a fault line, even a breath can trigger the collapse. It was Friday evening. Lena and I were supposed to leave early the next morning for the cabin she'd found. She'd been buzzing with excitement all week, planning playlists, packing snacks, even buying a stupid little pair of matching socks for cozy nights. Every time she showed me something new, the guilt swelled so hard behind my ribs I felt hollow. I was supposed to be packing when my phone buzzed on the dresser. "Mara, are you around? I need 5 minutes, just 5, please." My heart seized. I should have said no. I should have protected Lena. I should have protected everyone. Instead, I grabbed my jacket and told Lena, "I need to run something to the center. I won't be long." She looked confused. "Now? What is it?" "I forgot some paperwork I need for next week," I lied. "It'll take 10 minutes." She hesitated. "Okay, want me to come?" "No, too fast." I saw confusion flicker in her eyes. I'll be quicker alone." She nodded slowly, trusting me despite everything I didn't deserve. "I'll have tea waiting when you get back." The words twisted like a knife. The nonprofit parking lot. Mara was standing by her car, arms wrapped around herself, hair pulled into a messy bun. She looked tired, not physically, emotionally, hollow in a way that made my chest constrict. When I stepped out of my car, she exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for hours. "Thank you," she said quietly. "What's going on?" I asked. She looked up at me, eyes glassy. "I can't keep doing this." My pulse faltered. "Doing what?" "This," she gestured between us. "Hurting myself, hurting you, hurting her." A cold wind scraped between us. "I thought I could handle it," she said, voice trembling. "I thought I could be the secret or the mistake or whatever this is, but I can't. I'm losing sleep. I'm losing focus. I feel like I'm disappearing into something that has no future." "Mara." "No," she said, stepping back sharply. "Please, don't talk me out of this." I stared at her helplessly, feeling something inside me splinter. I need to let you go, she whispered. Those 6 words hit harder than anything that had come before, harder than the guilt, harder than the night itself, harder than the fear of being caught. I felt the breath leave my body. Is that what you want? I asked, barely audible. She closed her eyes, like the truth physically hurt. It's what I need, she said, even if it breaks me. Something inside me ignited. Not anger, not lust, not longing. Fear. Raw, unfiltered fear of losing her, of returning to a life where she wasn't woven into every corner of my mind. I reached for her before I had time to talk myself out of it. Mara, please, don't do this. She flinched at the sound of her name on my lips. You don't know what you want, she whispered. I do. And I want something real, something whole. I want someone who isn't torn in half every time they look at me. I'm not torn, I lied. She saw straight through it. You're shredded, she said softly. A tear escaped down her cheek before she could stop it. She wiped it away angrily. I can't be your escape hatch. I can't compete with a life you've built, a person who loves you, a home you share. I don't want to be the reason everything collapses. I stepped closer. You're not the reason. She shook her head. I'm part of it, and I refuse to become the part you resent later. The desperation in me surged, ugly and selfish. I don't resent you, I said. I don't, she whispered, voice breaking. Please, don't say something you can't take back. The weight of everything we hadn't said sat between us like a loaded gun. I'm leaving the nonprofit, she finally said. The world went silent. What? My voice cracked. I already talked to Carla. I'm finishing out the month. Panic flooded me, hot and suffocating. You're leaving because of me? She nodded once. I have to. I felt something deep inside me collapse. Not guilt, not grief. Loss. Real, irreversible loss. Mara, I said, stepping forward again. She reached up and pressed her fingertips lightly to my lips, stopping me. No more, she whispered. If you say anything right now, I won't be able to walk away. Her voice trembled at the edges, fragile and brave all at once. And I need to walk away, she said, before we ruin each other. She dropped her hand, turned, and opened her car door. Mara. She froze, but didn't look back. I hope you choose the life that makes you whole, she said, even if it isn't with me. Then she got in the car and drove away. The aftermath. I stood there long after her taillights disappeared, my breath shaking, my heart pounding so hard it physically hurt. I had no idea how long I stayed there. Minutes, hours. The cold settled into my bones like punishment. When I finally drove home, I sat in the car outside the apartment for another 20 minutes, staring at the steering wheel. Inside, Lena was waiting with a warm mug of tea and a smile that flickered uncertainly when she saw my face. Hey, she said softly. What happened? You look pale. I opened my mouth. And for the first time since this entire mess started, I didn't have a lie ready. Lena, I said. She took a small step toward me, concern knitting her brow. Yeah? I inhaled, sharp and shaky. We need to talk. The words landed between us like a detonator. She froze. The tea in her hand trembled. And in her eyes, I watched hope begin to fracture. I don't think there's a way to describe the look on Lena's face in that moment. It wasn't anger. Not yet. It was something quieter, heavier, like her mind was already taking inventory of every moment over the past few months, searching for signs she missed. "We need to talk," I repeated, softer this time. She set the mug of tea down on the table, hands trembling just slightly. "Okay," she whispered. "Tell me." There are truths that come out clean, tidy, rehearsed. Mine didn't. I told her everything in broken pieces. How I'd been distant, how I'd been struggling, how I'd crossed lines I never should have crossed. I didn't give details that would only hurt her more, but I didn't hide behind euphemisms either. I said the word cheated. Her breath hitched like she'd been struck. I kept talking because stopping meant hearing her sob, and I wasn't brave enough for that. "I didn't mean for any of it to happen," I said, voice shaking, "but that doesn't matter. It happened, and I'm so sorry." She sat on the couch slowly, like her legs were giving out. "For how long?" she whispered. "Emotionally, longer than I want to admit," I said. "Physically, once." She closed her eyes as if the room had become too bright. I couldn't look at her without wanting to fix everything I'd broken, but there was no fixing this, not the way she deserved. Finally, she spoke, voice paper thin. "Do you love her?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "I care about her. I got attached, too much, in ways I shouldn't have. But love?" I shook my head. "I don't think I ever let myself see it that clearly." A long silence. She wiped her cheek. "Do you still want to be with me?" The cruelest part was that the question wasn't manipulative. There was no test in it, no trap. She genuinely wanted the truth. And for the first time in months, I gave it to her without flinching. "I don't know who I am right now," I said, "and until I figure that out, I can't be what you need." Her face crumpled, but she didn't yell. She didn't throw anything. She didn't accuse. She just whispered, "Then I think you should go." I nodded, not because I wanted to, but because she was right. Leaving. I packed a bag with shaking hands, clothes, a toothbrush, nothing sentimental. Leaving with too much would have hurt her more. Leaving with too little would have felt like erasing our life. Lena stood in the hallway, arms wrapped tightly around herself. "When you know what you want," she said, "if you still want me, you can call. I'm not promising anything, but you can call." I swallowed hard. "You deserve someone who doesn't run away from their own truth." She nodded, eyes glossy. "Maybe, but I loved you. I still do, and that doesn't turn off in one night." That nearly undid me. I stepped closer, unsure if a hug was welcome, but she shook her head. "Not right now," she said softly. "Just go." So I did. The quiet between us. I didn't go to Mara. That would have been too easy, too cowardly, too much like confirming every fear she'd confessed in the parking lot. Instead, I checked into a cheap hotel near the edge of town, the kind with a buzzing fluorescent light and a bedspread that had seen too many lives before mine. The first night was unbearable, not with loneliness, with silence. Silence where Lena used to breed beside me. Silence where Mara's texts used to ping. Silence where I used to bury my doubts instead of facing them. The next morning, I drove to the coast. 2 hours of empty highway and enough distance from town to breathe without feeling watched. I walked along the cold shoreline until my legs ached. I let myself replay everything: the lies, the desire, the guilt, the comfort, the loss. Not to punish myself, but to understand it. There's no clean way to admit that love isn't always enough, or that desire can reveal parts of you you'd rather keep buried, or that two truths can exist at once.
I cared for Lena. I cared for Mara. And I hurt both of them. Owning that was the only way to stop repeating it. I stayed at the coast for 3 days. I didn't drink, I didn't run, I didn't reach for distraction. I just existed with myself, maybe for the first time in years. On the 4th day, I finally reached for my phone. First call. It wasn't to Lena. It wasn't to Mara. I called Carla at the nonprofit. "Hey," she said cautiously, "everything all right?" "I need some time off," I said. "A month, maybe. I've been carrying some things I need to sort out." She was quiet for a moment, then said gently, "Take what you need." I thanked her. Then I stared at my phone for a long time. 2 names, 2 different kinds of pain, 2 different futures I no longer had the right to predict. I didn't call Mara, but I did send one message. Me. I'm not coming back for a while, not because of you, because I need to learn how to be someone I trust again. She didn't respond immediately. Hours later, on the drive back to the hotel, her reply came. "Mara, take care of yourself, truly, and thank you for not coming to me to fill the void." I exhaled, a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. We were no longer tethered, and for the first time since I met her, that felt right. 2 weeks later, I went back to the apartment to talk to Lena. She looked tired, but steadier, stronger. We sat at opposite ends of the couch. "I'm not here to ask for anything," I said. "I just wanted to apologize again and tell you that you didn't do anything wrong, not one thing." She nodded slowly. "I know that now." I felt relief, bruised but real. "I'm going to move out officially," I added. "Give you the space you need." "Okay," she said. "Just take whatever helps you start over." We talked for an hour. About logistics, about boundaries, about how love can survive a breakup without asking for more than it should. When I stood to leave, she finally spoke the words that closed the chapter for both of us. "I hope you learn to choose people before you break them," she said gently, "including yourself." I nodded, because she was right, and because she deserved a version of me that could do that, whether or not it was ever hers again. I didn't end up with Mara. I didn't go back to Lena. I didn't run toward a new relationship or back to the old one. Instead, I found a small studio apartment near the coast, the place Mara once told me she dreamed of living. Not because of her, but because it felt like the first choice I made for myself, not because I was escaping something or chasing someone. I volunteer at a different branch now, one farther from town. I call my brother more. I started therapy, something I should have done long before everything fell apart. Sometimes I still think about Mara's laugh. Sometimes I still feel the echo of Lena's quiet hurt. But neither memory owns me anymore. Breaking 2 hearts wasn't romantic. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't worth glorifying. It was a failure, a deeply human one. And healing from it has been slow, humbling, necessary. I'm not the villain of my story.